Yo, Sea Milk.
Yo, dog.
Rich people.
Am I right?
Yeah, love them or hate them, they exist.
They certainly do. Speaking of which, we are currently on Rodeo Drive.
Yeah, which is famous for what?
In Beverly Hills for being rich. Well, there's some confirmation there. We got double GPS. Look at the Aston Martin. That's nice.
I gotta turn this.
So
off.
we are at go. We are on Rodeo Drive, pretending to be rich in a 1990 Firebird.
Oh, dude.
You know what's funny? You know how like this had like the Knight Rider stereotype, this car?
Yeah.
I think now it's definitely more synonymous with what's it called? Cobra Kai.
Think so?
Yeah, because like nobody's seen this car since Knight Rider, right? And then Cobra Kai got super popular.
Oh yeah, they had a 91, yeah.
That's right.
It's got that horrible nose though.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, to be honest, I'd rather be rolling around in this than a fancy schmancy sports car.
Sure.
And that's not just the poor man in me speaking.
That sounds very like butthurt, like.
No, it's just.
I know, I get it.
It's a lot more fun. You know, it's more special.
I get it. It also does sound like incredible. Not saying you sound butthurt, but that's what people usually say.
Yeah, I know. They're like, oh, I'd rather have my Beetle because it's more like, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I get you.
Sure. Anyway, we are rolling down Rodeo Drive, checking out rich people stuff.
Yeah, and we're talking about, the rich people in China compared to rich people elsewhere.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions. People think wealthy people are just wealthy people.
Sure.
Looks kind of nice up there, eh?
It does. I actually wanted to come here specifically.
Up there.
Specifically because
Yeah.
we've been to a lot of wealthy areas in China.
Oh yeah.
And we can do some serious comparisons. I have been here before, but I haven't really done a deep dive just rolling around for the purpose of looking for rich stuff.
I mean, I haven't been here before. It's my first time.
Okay, well, that's perfect then, right?
Yeah.
So here we are, rolling down, and what we can do is start making some comparisons, and what we're also going to do is talk about what it actually means to be wealthy in China,
Yeah.
and what that affords you, right?
Correct. So what does it mean to be rich in China? And I have to tell you, I've seen some incredible wealth.
Disturbing.
Disturbing amounts of wealth in China. I know a handful of billionaires, not just millionaires, but billionaires,
Sure.
right? And you meet them all over the place, especially as a foreigner.
Yeah.
The rich people tend to like to hang out with foreigners, or you somehow always end up in their circles.
Sure.
And it's a different kind of rich.
Yeah.
Maybe you can expand on that.
So if you're talking about communist China, you'd be like, why is there rich people there to begin with, right?
Sure.
That anomaly. Well, what happened is when the floodgates opened to Hong Kong, to the special economic zones in places like Shenzhen, and then, when they just got rid of that whole designation and made all these massive first-tier cities like Shanghai and Beijing and all this kind of stuff, what you ended up with is this influx of money through foreign investment and the fact that companies were allowed to start setting up shop, right? So you have this massive, there's 1 billion people that are halfway talented at being able to make stuff already, right? Under their current system, and then they're able to adapt very quickly.
Sure.
Very intelligent people, able to adapt to a Western market, right? So you have people getting rich hand over foot, right? Because they are already the elite of society, or they have those connections. You see, China runs off this thing called guanxi, and this is something that makes it a little different than U.S. wealth.
Sure.
U.S. wealth is going to rely on, not going to rely on, but it's going to help to have connections and know people, obviously. There's an upper echelon. There's a whole sphere of wealthy people.
Yeah.
The thing about China is you're not allowed to be powerful or influential unless you're in the Communist Party of China. That's the irony, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So you have to already have those connections. So the people that were already influential or already privileged were the first people to have the factories and have those connections to get wealthy, right?
Yeah.
So that's what was different, is the wealth happened pretty much overnight. Right? Whereas here it's like a slow build. Like if we're in Beverly Hills, obviously a lot of these people are from old money, right?
Yeah.
It's a long time coming, this place becoming so as rich as it is.
Yeah.
With places like in Shenzhen, that city didn't even exist until 1979. The wealth in China feels very underdeveloped. So when somebody gets quick money, we call it tuhao.
Yeah.
They just want to spend it on something that makes them appear wealthy.
Sure.
So you're talking about fur coats, ridiculous cars, right?
Yeah, stupid like cell phones that have got diamond
encrusted cell phones, marble interiors in their apartments.
Yeah.
The thing is, in the U.S., when you achieve wealth, when you become rich, right? Let's say you live here, right?
Yeah.
There's taste. Every one of these houses is meticulously architected. It's like an architect went through this, talked about design cues. I like the way this flows. I like this. I have landscaping this here and there. Why don't you talk about how that is not the case in China?
Well, first I'd like to point out what you're talking about is, the difference really between new wealth and old wealth.
Right.
And it was exactly the same in South Africa. I can draw a lot of parallels because, before the ANC took over, you had a situation where the majority of the wealth was kind of in the hands of old families that have been, there for a very long time.
Sure.
So, obviously white people that had been part of the settlers from, hundreds of years had built up all these big businesses and so on.
Sure.
When the ANC took over, of course, a lot of nepotism was involved.
Sure.
So suddenly people that did not have a driver's license, for instance, would get a brand new, I remember the BMW X5 was the newest thing back then. Okay, and it was the one to have.
Right.
And when you grow up, you're used to seeing the kind of person who has the money to buy a big BMW or something is somebody who's, kind of earned it over a long period of time. So it's somebody who's worked really hard and eventually they can afford this BMW. Or it comes from, like I said, a long history of money in the family. So like rich kids would be able to get this. But all of a sudden, this new wealth just popped out of nowhere because it's all through, the government connections and the nepotism and the tenderpreneurship and all that stuff that happened in South Africa.
Sure.
So what you found, it was really bizarre, is overnight you saw an influx of luxury cars on the road. And I mean, they just exploded everywhere.
Right.
And like I said, it was people that previously didn't even have a driver's license. In fact, they still didn't. They would buy them. And so you'd find like all these trashed BMWs. You'd see a brand new X5 with a massive dent in it because, hey, they've just got their car and they've just learned how to drive and they're crashing into
literally the
gates.
Same as China.
Yeah, I know. So that's why I said we could draw so many parallels.
Sure.
So when you've got this new money and you don't know what to do with it, you go out and you get what you think you need.
Yeah.
Flashy car, flashy watch,
Sure.
flashy clothes, stupid lavish house or apartment, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas people that have built money over time, I think they're a little bit more reasonable on what they spend on.
Sure.
They plan things out more because they know how difficult it was to make that money, and they're obviously good with money, and that's how they ended up where they were.
Sure.
So that's the major big difference that you see.
Right.
But all of that aside, I reached a point when I was in China, and I think you did too. You hit a plateau where you can go no further.
Yeah.
I was never rich in China, but I was certainly upper middle class. I got to that point where I earned a lot more than the average person.
Yeah.
Okay, but still nowhere near the rich folk, the stupid rich folk. But it doesn't matter because the difference between being a middle class and super rich in China, there is no real big difference other than the fact that the super rich can have like really expensive cognac, and a very expensive apartment.
Yeah.
You still end up living in the exact same environment as they do.
Yeah.
So I would be on the same level as, say, a billionaire.
Sure.
Right? And the reason being that we're all living in the same area of the city. Mm-hmm. We're all living in the same sort of apartment blocks. The super rich apartment block might be just down the road.
Sure.
But it's the same kind of deal as what I'm in.
Right.
And so you find yourself in a situation where you're kind of like, why bother? Like, why should I continue?
Sure.
Why film it,
Oh, yeah. Oh, you better watch those words. Watch those words. Watch those words. Watch those words, words. Watch those words. Watch those words as they come rolling from your tongue.
VPNs. If you're not using one, you probably don't care too much about security these days. It's a fantastic way to mask what you're doing on the internet, first of all. It also allows freedom. Sometimes you're restricted on your network, or perhaps you're within the borders of a country like mainland China where you cannot access the real internet. Well, VPNs allow you to jump over all these restrictions and get to doing what it is you want to actually do on the internet. There's also the benefit of being able to bypass region locking to watch your favorite shows and that sort of thing. Log on to nordvpn.com/ADVChina for a huge discount. Don't forget to use the code ADVChina for an additional month, completely risk-free. Be VPN or be square.
Well, so we're rolling around these rich neighborhoods, right? So when you're rolling around the rich areas of Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing, Guangzhou,
Yeah.
the whole point is to compare it to this type of stuff, right?
Yeah.
This residential nice stuff, like right outside the city center right there,
Yeah.
is wildly different. Like you said, the biggest difference from a super rich billionaire versus someone who's upper middle class in China is going to be just the luxury goods that they can afford, really.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, a middle class person can't afford to stay here in Beverly Hills.
No.
And it is really, really nice here, right?
I mean,
you can
look at it, it's
around.
beautiful.
Yeah.
The houses, they look immaculate and
Whereas
pretty.
you can go to the richest neighborhoods outside of Sanlitun and Zhongnanhai and all those places in
Yeah.
Beijing,
Yeah.
and you're still choking
Yeah.
on a polluted wasteland of air, right?
Sure.
Toxic quality. So those people still have to live amongst that. Also, when they want to go their luxury shopping, they go to the downtown place that's, frequented by the same people that, maybe those people aren't, the poor people aren't shopping there, but they're still there.
Sure.
Right? So, I mean, you could draw parallels to this with like the homeless population here.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual living standards of someone here, the average house price around here is $16 million, right?
Yeah, 16 million.
You could spend $16 million on an apartment in Shanghai. You
You
could.
can.
You
Easy.
can.
Easy.
The thing is, the difference in quality we're talking
Yeah.
about. You're still living in a really crappy gated community in Shanghai, in
Yeah.
a polluted city that's very noisy and loud.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you're literally surrounded by the rich and famous, and it's very clean.
Beautiful
and it's-
scenery,
Right.
Amazing,
Good security
immaculate.
systems.
Yeah, everything is great. And that's really the thing. Like I said, when I reached that plateau, okay, I had a car, so did you, which
Sure.
is kind of rare for expats in China,
Sure.
let's be honest. Only the
Right.
people that are there for the long haul usually
Yeah,
end
yeah.
up with a car. So you got your car, you got your nice apartment in a nice area.
Sure.
I finally moved to like a very rich part of Shenzhen.
Sure.
You remember the last area
Yeah.
I was living in?
Yeah.
So it's a rich, nice area. Got a great deal on an apartment there, that's why. Right there near a subway line, I've got access to everything. I can literally order any food that I want, go to any restaurant that I want type
Sure.
thing. I'm not lacking or not wanting for anything.
No.
And that's, unfortunately, when your eyes open and you see, like, where do you go from here?
Right. Right.
I was wondering, a guy's got a yoga ball in his passenger.
We are definitely
Yeah.
in the right
Because
area.
he's probably like a personal yoga instructor going
Sure.
to,
We're literally in Beverly Hills, like roaming around. It feels
Yeah.
kind of weird.
It's so nice here,
Yeah,
though.
it
Like
is.
the
It's
environment
really
and everything. But that's the thing is, you reach that plateau and you're like, where do you go from here? And
Sure.
then you're hanging out with billionaires, and the only difference is that they get to do their shopping trips, overseas. They'll fly to
Sure.
Japan or Hong Kong or wherever to
Right.
go get their stupid expensive LV bags and the
Sure.
shit that no one actually cares about.
Right.
And the next thing is that I want to talk about, which is important to me, is
Right.
cars.
Sure.
These rich guys that I met, all of them, except for one guy in Hong Kong, it doesn't really count because he's Hong Kongese,
Sure.
have poor taste in cars. They just buy whatever they're supposed to. So everyone in China thinks that a Maserati is what you should have.
Yeah, yeah.
They all buy a Maserati.
Sure.
And it's
I
like,
see that here too. Rich mainlanders come over and they buy
yeah,
Maserati.
they buy a Maserati or whatever it is, whatever the flavor of the year is.
Sure.
So they get this really expensive car. They don't know how to drive it properly.
No.
Okay.
It's Bentley.
There's a nice Bentley over there. They end up parking it in the same parking lot with all the crap cars down there, you
Sure.
know. Gets dings and dents. You want to go for a drive? You think you can do this? Think again. Because you go out into this crappy snarled traffic. You're not allowed to drive your car
No.
on specific days because of the laws in Beijing and stuff like
Sure.
that, and even Shenzhen. So what the rich people end up doing is they buy multiple cars so that they can avoid that weird rule.
Yeah.
So they'll drive the Maserati on Mondays.
It's just a very constricted driving
It's-
environment. You
it's
can't
not
enjoy
fun.
it.
No.
like even in the downtown LA traffic, we always laugh at people. And I think
Yeah.
people need to get this to their, like, how could you live in LA? Because we live in Long Beach.
Yeah, yeah.
And the traffic's really bad, I'll admit it, by American standards. But
Yes.
like, we're like, guys, you got to go to China at some point.
Yeah, then you'll
Every
see.
day, even in a third tier, I lived in a third tier city, every day is
Yeah.
a traffic jam to go 3 miles away.
I know.
It can
It's-
take me an hour.
It's horrendous.
It's horrible, and everyone is literally trying to kill you.
And, you know, because China is constantly growing, construction is a huge part. So
Sure.
the roads are always under construction. You've always got a big cement truck or dirt truck dropping junk on your
Sure.
car and stuff, you know, so
Sure.
it's a hostile driving environment.
Sure.
Not a lot of fun. So the driving's no fun. So even if you get to a point where you can afford a nice car, you know, it's not fun.
No.
It's also really expensive to drive.
Sure.
Everywhere you park, you have to pay for.
Sure.
And that's something that people they take it for granted in the States.
Sure.
Sure, if you go downtown in LA, you'll find places you have to pay a parking meter or whatever.
Sure.
But in China, everywhere you go to a mall, you have to park. You have
Yeah.
to pay for parking. Here you go
Yeah.
to a strip mall, it's free.
Yeah.
Go to the Walmart or whatever, it's
Yeah.
free. You have to pay at your own house.
Sure.
That's what people don't seem to understand. Your own apartment complex, you have to pay a daily or monthly rate to park there.
Sure.
And a lot of the times they're so full you can't even get a spot.
Right.
So you have to go park on the road, and it's a battle to find
True.
parking every day. And you have to
True.
pay to park on the road.
You do.
So you've got that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, don't forget, you drive on the highway. Every single time you get on the highway, you have to pay per
Sure.
kilometer.
Wow, some of these houses are insane.
Look at that one up
I hope
there.
you guys can see this stuff.
Maybe just film some of this stuff.
We covered you know, the actual just standard of living. Obviously, Beverly Hills is going to be a world standard, right? But the thing is, the amount of money in Shanghai, in China, in mainland China, amongst the top. The standard of living we've covered, right? The thing is,
Yeah.
the money that you can, there's a threshold, there's
Yeah.
a ceiling. So something really important to me is education, right?
Sure.
Now, I don't live in a rich neighborhood, right?
No.
However, I know my daughters are going to be able to go to really good schools. And guess what? They're free. You
Yeah.
can go to the fanciest of the fancy
Yeah.
private schools. Let's say you're a diplomat in Shanghai, right?
Yeah.
And you can go to a fancy private international school. You still have to follow
Yeah.
the rules
Yeah.
of the Communist Party of China. It doesn't matter if that international school says, like, oh, we use whatever curriculum.
Yeah.
That still gets censored.
Yeah.
That still gets manipulated.
Very true.
It has nothing to do, like, you don't have impunity. You can't just be like, oh, we can shoot whatever, we can teach whatever we want.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the Communist Party of China says, oh, we don't want that material taught in our country, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's absolutely true. The wealthy people I know, they end up sending their children to what's called an international school,
Sure.
which still have to follow the rules of the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah.
You know, you can't teach anything that they don't want
Sure.
in the international school. You still have to follow their curriculum. You know, Taiwan is a province, Tiananmen
Yeah.
Square never happened, you know, that kind of thing. And it's horrendously expensive.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of expats I know, they want to send their children to international schools,
Sure.
but they can't afford it.
Sure.
It's like only for the mega rich.
Sure.
So education is a big issue. Bringing up a child's a whole different topic.
That's the hardest thing to do in China.
But if I could draw a conclusion to all of this, it's a quality thing.
Yeah.
And you can be double the wealthy in China, but have less of a life quality
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
a person in the States
Right.
or Canada or Australia or whatever. And it's simply got to do with the living environment
Sure.
that you're in.
Sure.
And I think food plays a big role in that.
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
it?
like, honestly, we can talk about, like, California being one of the best places to eat in the world just because every country is here.
Right.
Every country is in this state, and you can find within a 10-mile radius of anywhere
Yeah.
a certain cuisine that you're looking for. But most importantly is the food safety.
Yeah.
You can eat as well as you want. You can go to the international supermarkets, you can pay a private chef and do all this kind of stuff within China.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're not going to get the freshness and the safety that you can afford in the West, right?
Yeah.
You will get sick in China.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is that it doesn't matter if you're going to like a really fancy restaurant. Those ingredients were still probably grown in the fecal wasteland
Soil.
carcinogen soil.
Yeah.
That literally gives people cancer and kidney stones and all kinds of bad defects, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it tastes good or not.
Yeah.
Mainland China has a serious food quality problem,
Yes.
right? So again, you're paying if you really wanted to, like, get every single ingredient, like a tomato imported in, you're going to be paying 10 times what you'd pay here. Right?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, we know that guy, and all he does is he's got like fridges all over his house.
Sure.
He's got one on the balcony, and all that stuff. And all he does is he actually gets stuff sent from America and from Japan and different countries. So all the food that he consumes while living in China is imported. Every single last thing.
Right.
It all comes from somewhere else.
Right.
Which is bizarre, but it just shows you. It just shows you that it doesn't matter how rich you are in China, you still have to live and deal with the same thing that the poor people have to.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a country like this, or where we are now, Beverly Hills, you're rich, you're other people. You get to live above everyone else.
Quite literally.
Yeah. I mean, you live in these beautiful villas or whatever, and it's beautiful, immaculate gardens, and you have the best restaurants and food, and so there is a big difference.
Sure.
So basically, to round it up, I would say that the wealthy people in the West, it's a different quality of wealthy.
Yes.
And it's not this new rich that doesn't know what to do with their money. And of course, at the end of the day, you can do nothing to change the environment around you.
My middle class lifestyle in the U.S. is better than a rich person's lifestyle in mainland China, and for the most part.
I'm going to go as far as to say that the lower class people here in California enjoy a better quality of life than the rich people.
Yeah, they have
in
fresh
China.
air.
Yeah, you've got beautiful
hungry.
parks. I'm sorry, but there's this weird thing going around where people think that all the parks in the USA are somehow
I don't
riddled with drug addicts.
I don't get it. I'm sure they exist.
You got gorgeous parks
Yeah.
with immaculately clean public
That you take your
bathrooms and
kids
stuff,
to.
right? You've got all these nature walks, hiking trails. It's all free.
It's literally one of the biggest things I missed when I was in China was the amount of trails and beautiful parks that we have in the U.S.
Absolutely.
I don't know where people are, where they're getting this from.
I mean, if you go to Arizona in the middle of Tucson, we've seen some shitty parks with homeless people in it, but it's in the desert,
Like, I'm just talking in general. It's a pretty nice place to be.
Oh no, it's fantastic. So the quality of life, even if you don't have a lot of money, and you see that a lot because you go to the parks and you'll see like huge gatherings of people that are just going to the park to celebrate birthday parties and stuff, and they're using the park as their because they obviously have a lot of people at home or whatever. But the quality of life is there. You've got the sea, you've got the sun, you've got the beaches, you've got all this. So you're a poor person living, just on the breadline in a very cheap apartment. You can still have an amazing quality of life.
You can still go surfing and hang out.
Dude, you could go hang out. Yeah, you could be a surfer.
You can hang out in the same kind of, same kind of stuff. You can get in your $500 car.
Yes.
And still do that.
Which you can actually get because you can't do that in China. There's no option for that.
No.
Drive along the coast, hang out.
Yeah, a middle to lower middle class person in China can't afford a car. To keep a car, I should say. To keep a car.
Yeah, and you can't buy cheap cars in China anyway. It's not possible. That's something they don't seem to understand. All the strict rules about cars in China. You can only buy new cars.
Right.
Anything that's sort of 12 years old, you're not allowed to buy. They have to be scrapped.
Sure.
And the license plate costs more than the car.
Yeah, in the cities we're talking about.
That's one thing that people didn't seem to understand.
Right.
How much is 80,000 RMB or whatever?
It's like 12, 13 grand.
Nowadays, that's how much you pay for a license plate in a big city like Shenzhen.
Sure.
So you can buy a car.
It's probably more now.
Yeah, you can buy a car for cheap. Let's just go out there. It looks interesting. Okay. You can buy a car for cheap, but then the registration and getting the plate, because there's so much competition for it.
Sure.
Costs way more. So you're screwed, right?
Right.
Yeah. So basically, every time you're like, oh man, so many billionaires and millionaires in China, you got to also realize that. I don't know, man.
That's a whole different topic. You also have a social safety net here.
Yeah,
that's the
true.
thing. It's like if you need to get unemployment, you can.
Yeah, that's true.
In China, I mean, good luck with that.
Yeah, agreed.
This is a narrow-ass road.
Yeah, it's a very narrow road. And we've got big, fancy, classy SUVs going past us here.
Yeah, that own it.
Yeah.
We're like, hey, this car's like ironic enough to like get away with.
Hey,
if
man,
it was
this
in
car's
bad shape,
cool.
it'd be different.
Oh yeah, no, I think.
What's up with the tomato red G-wagons everywhere? That's like a car du jour.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing, this car gets more attention than these fancy SUVs.
Yeah, oh, that's for sure. And in conclusion, if I was to like rank things, I would say a place like Hong Kong. If you were Beverly Hills rich in Hong Kong, you could still have an epic mansion up in Victoria or something, right?
Sure.
However, to be that same rich or richer in China, you just can't get the same stuff. It's just not there yet.
No.
You can pretend, and you can spend artificially inflated prices for those things.
Yeah.
Like, a Shanghai apartment that costs $25 million. You can do that, but you're not going to have the same lifestyle that you would here. That's my point. And that is why you see a lot of very wealthy Chinese people leaving. It is not, they might have a pride for China.
Yes.
They might be like, oh yeah, I love my home country, I miss it, and all this kind of stuff. But there's a reason people move here when it's rich, right?
Yeah.
It's a very simple thing. It's kind of like this this idea I hear all the time when people say, oh, people are leaving California in droves and all this kind of stuff. Some people are leaving California in droves because it's too expensive to live here. Do you know why it's too expensive to live here? It's because people want to move here, and stuff costs what it's worth.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's literally how economics work, right?
Right.
So people don't want to flock to China with their wealth.
No.
You're not seeing a man, like, let's say somebody from Beverly Hills here, right? They
Yeah.
live here.
Yeah.
They're not bringing their millions of dollars to go get a freaking massive apartment in Beijing.
No,
right?
or
There's
Shenzhen.
a reason for that.
Sure.
What you can buy in China for an exorbitant amount of money is much worse than what you can get in the West. And that is
Correct.
that is how I can kind of sum up comparing Beverly Hills to the rich areas of China.
Correct. Correct.
Cool.
Well, I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic. We've got a lot of interesting places to go today.
Sure.
So let's. Do you have anything you want to tell our subscribers before we sign off?
Well, I could do a whether you're rich or not, whether you're normal like us, just average Joes,
Yeah.
pretending that we deserve to be rolling around here or not. The truth is, we can.
Oh, we certainly can.
Everyone's allowed to come down here, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
In China, you get chased away by security.
Yeah, that's true.
Seriously.
No, you do.
Voices carry, by the way, especially in this
Yeah.
van. Anyway,
like
long
that
story
song.
short, let us know what you think. I'm curious to see if you guys have had experience in other countries outside of China.
Yeah.
What does like the wealth look like there in comparison to the U.S.? Because I think Beverly Hills would be your standard of comparison. Right?
Absolutely.
You know.
You always hear about it. And,
Sure.
know, here we are in Beverly Hills.
Sure.
I don't know what Coldwater Canyon Park is.
Nice.
Whoops, sorry. At least that's on camera.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, and whether you are rich or not, we love you all the same. And until next time, you know the drill. As always, guys, stay awesome.